Hey everybody, it is Coach Malcolm. This is my second beginner level ChessKid puzzle solving video because last time we had some pretty interesting, mostly pretty tactical positions, so I thought why not give it another go. So without further ado, let us see what ChessKid has in store. All right, knight takes d3. It looks like we're pretty even on material, but obviously black is cramping our position with their queen on f3, this knight on d3. We cannot immediately take back rook takes d3 because then this queen will take us right back. But what I am thinking about is playing a move like knight e5. We protect f2 with our rook. The queen is forced to move away, abandoning her knight, and now we'll get to take that piece for free. All right, next up, it looks like another pretty equal material level game. But in this position, we have some discovered checks, discovered tricks. So our queen and our rook are staring down this rook on f8, but we need to draw the king away from it. So what better way to do that than to sacrifice bishop takes h6. Once the king takes, now we are free to take on f8, and we are going to be up in exchange in this position here. Much better off. All right, white to move again. Here it looks like we are down a piece, but black actually in this position has no squares, but g6, the one that he is so nicely seated on. So how are we going to take advantage of that? We don't want the black king to be able to move back towards the 7th rank and join his pieces. So we're going to play rook e6 after king f5. Take a second, see if you can find the checkmate in one in this position. Right, rook to f6, checkmate, guarding that pawn on f4. The king obviously can't take, and our pawn is guarding this rook. Every piece, including those 2 pawns and those 2 rooks. The only piece is not doing a job in that position were the pawns on the queen side. All right, but let's just focus on our next puzzle now. It looks like we've got a pretty equal setup here again. This rook take anything? No. Rook h6. I think this rook is abandoning his back rank, and I'm first of all eyeing this. Oh, I did not play that move. Let's retry. First of all, we are eyeing this open e-file, which is obviously very strong, but here we go. Look, I'm just understanding the position, looking too much into it. We have a very nice pin with our other rook right here. So how are we going to take advantage of this pinned pawn? We can simply just play queen takes d4 and then take this queen on c7. All right, let me get our toolbar out of here. All right, next up. Next puzzle, it looks like we're up a pawn here. But we have a pretty neat fork. This queen and this bishop, well, the queen is defending the bishop, but if we can separate them, we will be able to win a piece. So how can we fork these 2 pieces to win that bishop on b6? Take a second or two, think about it. Right, hopefully you see rook to b5. Okay, well, this bishop is going to sacrifice himself on f2, but we can quite simply just take that with our rook. All right, next up, we're up a pawn in what looks like a pretty tricky endgame we've got here. So how are we going to proceed? Well, if we played a move like rook c8, and the first thing I'm noticing, if this king comes to h7, then knight f6 will easily be able to win that rook on d5. But if rook c8, what if this king goes to g7? Then obviously it is a little bit trickier. So what am I thinking? Instead, I'm thinking we are going to be forcing a mate. So oftentimes in these positions, this king is trapped in the corner. Our knight is going to do a really good job taking the squares g8 and h7. So knight f6 is going to win the game. If black chose to play a move like rook g5, we'll simply be able to just allow our king to escape. And what's coming next is a checkmate like rook h7. And if black decides to block with bishop g7, then rook c8 is coming, and black is going to lose their piece at the very, very least. All right. Next up, we have, it looks like we are up a piece, but black has 2 pawns for the piece, and immediately we are in check. So let's assess what the best way to get out of check in this position is. It looks like, it might not seem like knight f5 is the best way to get out of check because there are two attackers on f5, the queen and the rook. But the very neat thing about knight f5, it is that it is a discovered check. Knight f5 checking with the rook, and it's actually a discovered checkmate. Pardon my misuse of proper terms, because this queen and this rook are guarding all of the king's possible squares. All right, let's see what's next. Rook takes f7. It looks like we could take that rook back, but we have something better. Black has exposed its back rank. So which square on the back rank should our queen go to make a checkmate in 1, 2, 3, 4 moves if Black wants to stretch it out? All right, hopefully we see queen to c8. Here we go. Here's the second move. Here's the third move. And now, well, they don't want to play it out, but if rook f8, it would be our fourth move, checkmate. All right, here we go. Oh, they have taken our knight. Sorry, our bishop. Knight takes d4, takes our bishop. So if we take back, it seems like white would be able to take on b2 and get a pretty equal position. So what I'm thinking here is first we play rook takes b1, rook takes b1, and then rook to a1, forcing this rook to not be able to take on b2 because it is pinned. Let's see if I'm right. All right, this rook can't take on b2 because it is pinned, and now we are going to be up a rook and trying to promote very shortly afterwards. All right, here it looks like we have equal minor pieces. We might be down a pawn. We are down one pawn. But what can we do? So this is all about the power of pins. This knight on e7 is pinned because the bishop will be staring down that queen if the knight decides to move out of the way. So we're going to be taking advantage of this open diagonal here with our bishop to b5. We don't want to move our queen because our threat in all its entirety is to have this queen move to d7 so we can take, and that won't have anything to it if it is just our queen and it's a regular queen trade. So here in this position, we are going to continue, take with our pawn, after pawn takes, bishop takes, and again, okay, well, if they choose to take with the knight, bishop takes d8. All right, I'm not sure why my tax bar keeps coming up, but let's get it out of the way. All right, let's do just a few more puzzles, maybe 2 or 3. Rook to a1. All right, we're down one pawn in this position, but we can win some material. So this pawn is pinned by the rook. It cannot do any captures, and it is protecting this bishop on e5, but not really, because once we take it, the pawn is not able to take back because the rook will be, putting the king in check, so it's not allowed. So let's see, queen h3. It looks like we definitely don't want to play queen h5 because then we'll just lose our queen. So our only choice is going to be to play king g8. All right, and now they just wanted us to find king g8, I guess. All right, next up, rook to f6. All righty, this position seems like we are going to be taking advantage of a blunder. So rook f6 is a blunder because once we skewer this king to his rook, he's going to try and defend it. But how can we force this king to have to move all the way over to the h file to abandon his rook? Take a second or two, see if you can find the answer. That's right, we're going to play rook g8, force that king to the h file, take this free rook on f6. All right, I think this is going to be our last puzzle for today. Here, let's end it off with a beautiful discovered check, discovered attack. And remember, that's when you move one of your pieces out of the way, a forcing move, almost always a capture or a check, in order for another one of your pieces to take something that is hanging. So in this position, that means bishop h7 check, moving it out of the way of our queen so she is able to take black's free queen on c3. All right, guys, that's going to be the end of the puzzles that I covered today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, and I will see you all later. Bye, everybody.